I'm here with Chaz, homeschool mom of 3. Can you remind me the ages of your kiddos?
Yeah, 7, 5, and 18 months.
7, 5, and 18 months. I'll start with how we met, which is that we were having a morning with a beekeeper and learning all about bees and honey. And you were there might have been one other family that I didn't know, but basically Megan, who had organized that particular event, she had invited people from another group that she does stuff with. And so I was like, who is this new person that's here? And now you're like in the group.
Yeah, feels
Pretty
great.
awesome. I remember at the time, and we're gonna like go back before we get into all this stuff, but I remember at the time you were on the fence about homeschooling.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so we'll get there. But this was like your first year.
Yeah, yeah. I was sort of already doing it last year, but, it was technically my eldest's kindergarten year, and that almost feels like a freebie year. The requirements are it's like, "And your kid count to 20," and, um, you know, she has a, like, later birthday in the calendar, so she would've been older for her grade, and so I chose to start that with her a little later.
Yeah.
And, I feel like, I don't know, because I had her also enrolled in a forest school 3 days a week, doing anything intense would have been way too much anyway. So I felt kind of like I was getting a free year to kind of evaluate homeschooling, and I wasn't sure. I open enrolled actually in our elementary school that we can walk to, public one. Just because I was so unsure, because the one piece missing for me was our forest school was such a big community, and I had no homeschooling community. Nobody was leaving forest school for homeschool, and I felt super nervous, so I started going to Wild and Free. I met Megan. Megan seems to know everybody. She was
Yeah.
super friendly. There was a very awkward, like, everybody sat together at the tables to eat lunch after this, like, NCAR day, and, there were no seats left for me and my kids. And I had this moment of, like, back to middle school, I have no friends. It was very vulnerable, but I survived because Megan was like, "Let's make room for" you know? Um, anyway, and she told me about the beekeeper thing, and that just sounded so amazing, and it was really close to my house, so it seemed like, why wouldn't I go and just see, like, what this community is like? And it was rad, so
Yay. Well, I'm glad that you came.
Thanks.
um, so going back, like life pre-kids, pre-homeschool, pre-kids. I know.
Wow, okay.
I know. Like who are you? What was your life?
Um, I was a graphic designer. I I think I was still freelancing, um, but my main, like, source of income was I also am a letterpress printer, so I had a very high-end wedding invitation design business.
That's
Um,
awesome. Didn't
yeah,
know that.
super niche.
That's amazing though.
Yeah, it
You
was
still
cool.
do that?
I still have a press in my garage, but I don't know, maybe we'll get to that story, and that could be its own interview in and of itself, basically, so I'll try and keep it concise, but,
Yeah.
um, no. A friend emailed me today asking if I could do a new logo for her, and I don't know what I'm gonna say. I don't know if I'm gonna do it or not. I don't know when I could, and I kind of balancing both things, meaning, like, the kids
Yeah.
and being a good parent, and also being, responsive and fair to clients was impossible for me.
Yeah.
And maybe, for a more organized person, maybe a more resourced person, um, it would be more doable. But for me personally, it was a constant battle. And then I didn't stop taking clients or working until I literally had like a mental health breakdown during COVID with 2 under 2. Um, and I was like, whoa, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like, so no.
Yeah.
I have lots of dreams, lots of ideas, but I'm not currently, I was thinking about getting back into it with my older 2 being 7 and 5, maybe like last year, and my younger was 4, I guess a little earlier than that because no, so when I had my last kid, my 18-month-old, she was 4, and, like, right around that point, I was starting to feel like I would have capacity, like, they play on their own, they're really good, but now back to the baby, no way, I would say maybe when she's 4. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I don't know, but I can relate to that feeling of, like, having the 2 who are older and, like, you get a glimpse of where that's, like, going, and then having the younger one kinda bring you back. I, like, love it because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, because he's
Oh,
my
it's
last," you know? And also, like, there are moments where I'm really aware of the fact that yeah, just that split, so I totally feel you, and I feel the pull with, career creative stuff too. I talked to Megan earlier, and she was like, "Someone's gotta interview you too," and I'm like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,"
I
sometimes
love
all that
that.
stuff will come pouring out about, like, my crazy inability to not do things that I really should probably do.
Oh, I am so on that train, like, uh,
Yes. I'm like, "Okay, good night, husband, I'm gonna go interview another mom."
I love it.
Um Okay, so graphic designer,
Yeah.
letterpress, love it, love it, love it. Was homeschooling always on your radar, or I guess what made you decide? Well, a couple things. First, what made you decide to do like the alternative forest school path? And then from there, I guess, like, why did you leave forest school and what made you really lean into like wanting to homeschool? You mentioned community was like kind of the final thing that you felt like you needed to be able to move ahead with it, but like what were the reasons why you were curious in the first place?
Homeschool was never on the table for me. I was public schooled, so was my partner. I knew one kid who was homeschooled until I think I met her in 2nd grade, and, she was she was kinda mean, like, I didn't really like her. Um, and I was like, "Wow, homeschooled kids are weird. This is so, like, not it's so bad." This is how I thought about it. I was like,
No,
"Wow." Like,
you're not alone. And there's been several people who are like the homeschool kids were weird, unsocialite, you know.
yeah, I was never it wasn't even like I was anti-homeschool, it was just, like, a non-option. I was, "Yeah, no, I'm not homeschooling." Like, public school for sure.
Yeah.
Then when I had kids, I didn't know what Waldorf was, but I just found myself kind of in a Waldorf loving community, and I think, like, my personal style, I really like hand knit items, and I'm all about, like, natural fibers, and I have my kids in wool in the winter, which, like, that could be a filter at the playground. You can tell who the woolly mamas are, you know? And, I started to learn more about the different modes of schooling, but I didn't really I could not have told you what Waldorf even was back then. I wasn't even at the point where I was like, "I wish my kids could go to a Waldorf school." I just had no idea, and I was like, "I'll worry about that later. My kids are babies."
Yeah.
Um, cut to the, like, COVID times, mental health breakdown. That was when my eldest was about 3.5. Like, getting to the point where everybody's like, "So, what preschool is your kid going to?" And I was working part-time at the time. We did not have a budget for any kind of, like, childcare or, preschool. We weren't planning on any of that. Uh, so I wasn't really taking any of that into consideration until I just couldn't do it anymore, and I needed a break. So I started going to therapy. I started going to Song Circle and found some community there, and I started putting my oldest kid into a forest school program. And at that time, I had no idea what I was doing. I literally just wanted something. It was COVID. I wanted something outside, and forest school felt like a nature connection, which for me, like for my mental health, I'm not even like a Coloradical, like, we've got to do all the 14ers. I am so not like that. Um, I love camping, like, not crazy backpacking, hiking, but like I am not competitive about it. I do not have a Strava account. I am not like an ultra marathoner, nothing like that. It's just very soothing to be outside, right? And so I thought, like, great, this seems like a good fit for school. My partner can drop her off on his way to work. Um, and we put my eldest in for school. And that was in like January. This felt like such an emergency situation for my mental health that we like found something partway through the year. And then I only had only um, the younger, and that gave me some breathing room, and that was really helpful.
Yeah.
At the time, the year prior to that, we'd been doing an outdoor child share with another family who's my neighbor. We still love them. But she was pregnant with her second and getting too pregnant to continue. And so we like all also it was winter, it's harder. And it was outdoor. So we were both looking for something for our olders and found that. And it was a terrible fit, actually. The vision for it is beautiful. I think it used to be a really beautiful program. The director has a lot of wonderful community ideals, but the reality of it, there was high turnover for like young, like college kids watching the little kids. It was COVID, so they weren't even allowed to use any of their indoor spaces. They had, which was a teepee. They had a teepee for like if there was rain or like wet snow in the winter. Rare situation in Colorado, but like if the weather was that bad, they had an indoor option and they weren't even using that. So the weather was that bad a couple times and like the teachers were stringing tarps. Multiple times I saw kids crying in inappropriate gear, cold. And then we had an interaction with a teacher the teacher was great. It's just that there were too many kids. The ratio was like off. There were too many kids. They all had to use the bathroom at the same time. My kid didn't pull her pants up immediately. The teacher pulled her pants up for her in a totally innocent way, wasn't like intentionally crossing any body boundaries, was just like had a bunch of kids pulling up their pants, nothing rough. But for my kid, um, she stopped peeing at school. She and started having accidents, which she had never had before that. She stopped eating at school and she didn't want to go anymore. And so I realized like, oh, just because it checks the boxes, it doesn't mean it's a good fit. I just realized I'm supposed to get back around to homeschooling, so I'm going to try. um, um, so then I started looking for something else, and we found an amazing program with an amazing community. Um, that was actually closer to my house, much more crunchy, meaning like, I don't know, they were just not concerned about they're like, I don't know, if you were a good fit, you were a good fit, and they weren't like so they were just so amazing. Um, and the teachers were it's like maiden energy times 200. They are just wonderful, and they're all, like, total badass women. Really, really cool. Total mix of ages, and it was rad. And so that's I'm calling it forest school, but it was really a farm school. So then we had it was a forest school model on a farm. So we had them there and or actually, yeah, we put both kids there. We loved it, but again, we had no budget for this. So we were just like bleeding money for this and I wasn't working and it was like literally to get my mental health online. Once I had more community, that like in between period before your kids are old enough to be in any kind of like programming with separate from you, which is a different age for everybody. Like for some people, they're fine with that at, 1.
Mhm.
For me, maybe 3.5 feels better. And no judgment either direction. But like, yeah, and for others, probably 5, like kindergarten, right? Um, but for me, weathering that in between period it was just, like, the perfect storm of everything. Oh, yeah, we were also renovating our kitchen ourselves at the time, so we had no kitchen. I was doing all of our dishes in our one bathroom. It was rough. Anyway, it's fine, everybody's fine, um, but we just loved it so much after that first year that we continued to do it for 2 more years, and then the only reason we left was because then we were, like, qualified for scholarship, and so we had, like we were barely able to afford it, but, like, not living comfortably to do so, um, and then my oldest aged out. So, my oldest turned 7, 7 is the cutoff age for that, and, we found her another program. She does 1 day a week now that's paid for through the homeschool enrichment funding money, which is rad, um,
Yeah,
but
very specific to Colorado too. I
yes,
mean, I'm sure it
yes.
exists other places as well, but certainly a lot of resources here.
Yeah, and that has been, like, an answer to a prayer, like, we're not religious, but, like, it having, like the forest school piece is really important to me because it's another source of community, and going through that whole mental health crisis, I realized, like, I really just needed I mean, I don't know about just, and I don't know if this was really the only thing I needed, but, like, a huge crucial piece was just feeling super alone and isolated and not having community, and so, having that be, like, another community element, um, even if it's only 1 day a week. And also it gets her some mentor relationships, like teacher relationships that is something that I can't recreate in homeschool,
Yeah,
um, that I really value. And this particular one has not just maidens, but like elders involved. So it's like a really good balanced situation.
yeah.
Um, anyway, getting back to homeschooling, gosh. Uh,
It's all related. That's all connected.
okay, great. Well, I this year, I felt really good going into homeschooling because I had my backup plan, which was open enrolling, and I mean, this was like I called a friend of mine who, like, has kids my age and was just like, "I need advice. What did you do when your kids need to go to school?"
Yeah.
I do not know what to do. I remember I was, like, walking my dog with my baby in a carrier, like, crying on the phone about, like, "What do I do?"
Oh,
And she said it was, like, her hardest decision, and she ended up sending her kids to a big Waldorf school, and, I think that held her kids well, but, that wasn't a financial option for us, so it just seemed like I don't know, as I got closer and closer, the pressure felt like it was mounting to, like, make a decision, and I had this thing this is related, I swear. I had this thing with the births where I I was seeing just, like, a normal Western medicine doctor, totally fine, because my insurance covered it, but I really had wanted a midwife, but it wasn't covered by insurance, and I was okay with that. But then, that's a whole other story, so I won't even go into the whole series of events, but basically, I realized on, like, a hospital tour that I wasn't actually, my partner was like, "You seem very uncomfortable. I don't know if you're gonna give birth in a hospital," which is like, uh, anyway, I had, like, never questioned that, and then I read Ina May Gaskin's Guide to Childbirth, and I really sat with myself, and I was like, "I really wanted a midwife." I was thinking, like, a midwife that worked in a hospital because I had a friend who was one in in the state I'm from. Um, and I was like, "I what do I think is the, like, best way for me? Like, if I could have any choice, like, I don't get to go back and redo the birth of my first child, or second or third." But, like, that
yeah.
felt like this big important decision with capital D. What would I choose? And I was like, I would choose a midwife for sure and maybe a home birth. And so I went and hunted for a midwife I felt comfortable with. And I got so lucky. And that is like one of the most beautiful relationships in my life. And it has been this crazy journey. And all three kids have been born at home. And so to be honest, that has kind of become my like bellwether for things. I'm like, okay, not to put this up on a pedestal or anything, but what do I really think is the best way to educate my kids? Mental health aside, like time available aside, whatever. And I was like, okay, if I could remove the obstacles, what would I do? And homeschool just felt the most true for us, but I didn't know anybody doing it.
Yeah.
So I was like, are there even secular homeschoolers? I didn't know the answer to that. I mean, I knew there had to be some, but, like, here locally?
Yeah.
I didn't want a Zoom community. I wanted in person, like, my kids seeing their kids, free play. Outdoor is really important to me. Just and I mean, I'm not, like, trying to torture my kids or anything, like, if it's under probably 30, like, we're not gonna be doing, like, a 3-hour outing or something, like, no, but, like, being able to get outside, having people that valued nature connection and not any kind of, like, pushy church stuff was really important to me, and so I don't know. The state of education in this country has been like I c I don't know. I have some friends who are teachers. Um, I have one friend who committed suicide after a really rough time during COVID teaching.
Oof.
And I chatted with her for, like, several times during this year, and every time she was like, "Oh, it is just so sad. It's so hard." And COVID, I realized, was a different situation, but I think maybe one of the silver linings of it, if there were any, um, it really reset my priorities and made me take my mental health seriously. And it also made a lot more people consider homeschooling. And so I think that the community is wider now,
Mm.
and it's less weird. um,
I
and then as I
know.
met
That's so
people, I was like, oh, wow,
weird.
they're really normal. Anyway, that's my hope. I did I even answer the question?
You totally did, and I loved
Great.
hearing all the backdrop to it too, and I'm sorry about your friend, and sorry about the wonky forest school fit, and, like, yeah, lots of, like, twists and turns, but, yeah, sounds like you're in a good place because you followed, like, your heart and your family, which is, like, all you can really do at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. Um, you talked a little bit about this with, um, the forest school, like, expectations versus reality. So now that you're, like, a year into homeschool, well, hold on, rewind. First, um, in terms of Waldorf, do you still feel like that's sort of the philosophy that you're following in your homeschool, or do you feel like, what's your relationship between, like, curriculum versus unschooling versus all the various philosophies there are? Where do you sort of find yourself, or where have you been, like, living, I guess, in the last year with it all?
Um, I believe the term is eclectic,
Yeah.
but which basically, if anybody who's watching this who doesn't know, is like a big mix. Waldorf, I'm not anti-Waldorf, but it does stem from, like, a religious background, which I'm not a huge fan of, and keeping that out of my schooling is really important to me.
Yeah.
So, Waldorf is like my handicraft tie-in kind of, and also
Yeah.
I really like their like, how they integrate, like, really art and song and handicraft skills are integral parts of the curriculum, and they also have this really beautiful philosophy, not that I'm some Waldorf expert, but I've done some research here. Um, they have this really cool idea where, like, the kids should be out, like, first thing in the morning. I'm not good at this, my kids sleep in. We are not, like, super efficient morning people, we are, like, always late people, but we always get out, and it's usually the first thing that we do. But not always. But they have this whole thing about, like, connection to nature. A lot of their stories are really beautiful. We've been using some of their early reader stuff because it's always, like, naturey and has beautiful artwork. But that might be the extent of our Waldorfs. Oh, and they have, like, 1 lesson for the day on something, whatever it is, and it's, like, maybe 2 hours, and that includes, like, making some kind of beautiful page that's, like, the art is part of it, right? And the copywork, and that's it. it's not this, like, long day. In my mind, I'm used to the public school model, and so I expected it to be this, like, 8 to 3, teaching my child with a blackboard, something like that. It is so not that. So I love the rhythm of it being really, like, beautifully held and slowed down. Slowing down is a huge reason why I homeschool. Like, the fast pace of our society these days it's actually just too much. And I think that it is stamping out the humanity in all of us. Um, so I like that. I really like Charlotte Mason. Um, it gets a little religious, so I just like leave all that out. But I love the nature journaling. Um, and I don't know. Um, like our core curriculum that we landed on is Blossom and Root. It's
Mhm.
really affordable. The books are at the library almost always, like 98% of the time. We like ransack the library. The library is huge for us. Um, and I don't go on Facebook anymore, so I don't have access to their like wider Facebook community, but some of the other moms that are in the cohort do, and they will regularly say things like, "We saw that this is a great add-on for the science lab," or whatever. Um, so it's really cool and it's secular and it's nature-based. So for me, anything secular, nature-based, slow pace. So when
Yeah,
I'm looking for like a book for some tie-in, math even, like, is it nature-based? Is it secular? Is the pace of everything slow enough for us?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not trying to make my kids into like there's somebody in this like mama's group I'm in that was like, this book was amazing, and it was about, like, teaching your kids to finish college by the time they're 16 or something, and I was like, "That is so not it that is missing the point."
yeah. Slow your roll.
Yes.
Okay, and then the question that I was, like, leaping to, but tying back to, yeah, expectations versus reality with forest school. Now that you are in the midst of this year, um, where, you're doing the thing, do you feel like you came into it with expectations? And are you finding, like, yeah, like, how is it all landing for you, I guess? Like, did you come into it thinking one thing and you feel like you've had to make changes along the way? Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah.
Dial me back in if I don't answer this correct, like,
No, cool.
if
Yeah.
I range too far, I guess, but,
You do
uh,
you.
the
Free
way
reign.
I'm hearing it, I'm changing stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if I even really had of course, I must have had some expectations, but I don't that's the piece I'm not sure, like, how to approach really, but basically, I had too ambitious of a plan for the year. I randomly added in this beautiful geography curriculum just because a couple friends were doing it, and it's awesome, but it was too much. We were always, like, trying to fit it in, and I think that if I didn't have the toddler, it would have been doable, but I do have the toddler. Um, so no. So we dropped that. Like, basically, I hate it when people cancel things, not like if people are flaky, that really bothers me. I probably have some, like, abandonment complex. I do not know, but it just really bothers me if somebody just, like, it's like, "I'm just not feeling it today." Just, like, that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
However, I have been eating a big dose of humble pie. This, like, I'd say maybe started in like August, September, I think August, and then by November, maybe like Samhain, like ish. I was so burnt out. And I was like, wow, we need to dial everything back. So dropped geography. We dropped a nature group we were doing, we did not need to do a nature group. Nature study is not the hard subject for us. That's like, we could do that one easily. It's like it could almost just be time outside. I have curious kids. We have 1,000 bird guides. Like, we're always out there, like, learning about some random thing without like, almost effortlessly, right? So, I didn't need to be in that group. I just wanted to be in that group, and I signed up for it, and it was great. But I also happened to have music that night, and it was making it so exhausting. I try not to have multiple things in a day.
Yeah.
So, we made music the priority. That was a condition of my partner's actually, is that their homeschool if they were gonna homeschool, that they had some kind of music component. I never learned how to read music. I don't know how to play an instrument. I sing, but, like, I don't know the, like, complexities of it. So, I can't teach that,
Yeah.
and it's really another language. So, we found a class for that. It's awesome, recommended by people in our cohort, and that is how we're handling that, and it's been great. But because we chose to prioritize that, I basically dropped everything else that day.
Yeah.
And, I tried to change my days so I had one thing per day the whole week. And I wanted one day where I didn't have to be anywhere, I didn't have to get in the car, we could just walk to the local park.
Yeah.
And then I have one day that we, like, dedicated nature day where it's like, we're outside, um, and so, like, we get outside regardless of the day, but it is a day where, like, the only expectation is that we are outside in nature for a length of time, and that has been, like, really helpful.
Yeah.
I also moved I started using the weekends, which is, like, I was so anti using the weekends for schooling, but with the toddler, like, climbs on the table. We just homeschool at the kitchen table. Um, like, throwing the colored pencils down. She's so interested in what's happening and has to be involved, and her nap isn't super predictable. So, sometimes she takes 2, and then they'll both be shorter, and sometimes she takes 1 long one. But I can't plan my weekly rhythm around that because it's not predictable. So, um, I don't know. What we now do is to make sure we stay on track for our group science lab.
Yeah.
We always do science on Sundays when my partner holds the baby, basically. And, like, he'll usually, like, go to the dog park with her or something, but, like, baby is not on my plate. We can for sure commit to that. It can get done in a thorough way. Everybody loves it. It's enjoyable. But this whole year has been, like, doing less, slowing down, and then it's fun. That's how I even know the Waldorf thing about, like, 1 lesson per day. So, I am not some kind of expert, but I read that. I was like, "Yes, I love that."
Yeah. Well, I love just how you framed all of that, just in terms of like, yeah, recognizing that you needed to scale back. And I mean, I think that's something we can all relate to. I feel like I'd be curious to know like how many people overplan, you know?
Everybody
I know.
100%, 100% of people.
Overplan, and then you either recognize that you need to like scale back or you don't. And then it's just like a free for
Then
all
you're
of,
crying.
and you're crying in the corner. Yeah. um, when a homeschool day goes really, really well, or when you think of like your favorite days from this past year homeschooling, what are those days made up of? Not just like schedule, but just like overall like feelings, what's happening. I mean, I can already guess like nature is a part of it, like getting outside. Um, always solves everything, it feels like. But yeah, what are your favorite days homeschooling?
Not winter. The days in the winter are so short, I just feel like and they can be cold. I don't know what's going on this year, but, like, they
I
can be
don't know either.
so if you forget one kid's mitten, you've lost half an hour off out
Yeah.
in your go back to start, literally. But, any other season, we leave the house first thing in the morning, which for us is, like, 9:30, 10. It is not 7. I would love for it to be 7. It's not. Um, and I bring the curriculum with us, whatever it is. Oh, yeah, I'm not back to that question. I'm a little unschooly, like, I'm not stressed about it if we're a little behind on something. I do think kids are learning all the time. However, I need to lean on a curriculum, and I'm pretty pro curriculum. I don't know. I don't have any, like, crazy judgment towards the unschoolers or anything. I think that it's a perfectly valid approach. Uh, I would have such anxiety worrying about, like, getting in trouble. That's just, like, who I am as a person. If I, like
Yeah.
not that anybody's hunting us down, but I don't know, everything is weird in the world right now, so, um, anyway, I bring the curriculum, we have each subject in, like, these bags that are waterproof. They're just, like, zippered bags,
Mhm.
and they're plastic, so they're waterproof. We're not talking, like, fancy REI situation, and I just bring that. I bring a blanket. We have plenty of snacks. The dog is with us. We're probably along a river somewhere, and it's probably, like, science day or a literature day, and we're just, like, going through I'm, like, reading a book while the kids are in the tree, and then they come down. Often on days like that, they don't wanna do I might bring their, like, student notebooks, but they usually won't do that until we get home, unless it's a nature study day, and then they're happy. That's more of, like, it's just a notebook, so it's blank pages, and they can just do whatever they want,
Mm.
uh, and they're open to, like, that, but, any, like, copy work, like a prompt, they're not really down for that,
Yeah.
that's fine. So, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Sounds peaceful.
The parent.
And it's like you get the best of both worlds. Like you get the outside time and you get to like check your own internal box of like, we did the academics.
Yeah,
I
I'm
brought my
not falling
curriculum.
behind, which is, like, such a, like, quote, unquote, "behind." It's like a toxic thing to tell yourself, but
Yeah.
how can you not, right?
Yeah. The world around you. Um, what part of homeschooling stretches you the most?
Uh, Keeping on schedule, being patient with my middle kid, who is currently 5 and a totally different learner than my oldest kid.
Mm,
Um, my middle is left-handed, very distractible, like, thinks in totally different ways. She actually thinks a lot like me. Um, Everything is interconnected in her mind, and so she might pop out something random, but I can see where it came from or, like, how she got there, but it's
yeah,
not,
yeah.
like, at all related to the task at hand typically.
Mm,
Um, and it's as the person responsible for teaching her, it's hard to be patient with that because 'cause I'm like, "We just need to get through this," and I'm constantly having to check myself.
yeah.
Um, and because I have the toddler this year, one thing I did is I am trying to do both of them, most subjects, I'm trying to do them both together, and
Yeah.
I just have higher expectations for the older and lower expectations for the younger, and, um, it's hard because there's a constant comparison being done by them even, um,
Mm,
and that's a big chasm. Those 2 ages, there's, like, a big leap that happens between those ages, at least in our family, that has been the case with, my first and my second so far.
yeah.
So, that's challenging, and also getting anywhere on time. Like, my cohort has, like, amazing events all the time, and I don't know, it takes me, like, 15 minutes once I'm at the place to get the winter layers on the baby, and I'm just, like, always late. I've probably got the dog attached to me, and I'm just, like, a mess. Like, I'm
When you
not
show up with the dog too, I'm always like, I don't know how she does it. Like
the dog
the
really
baby and the
does.
dog. I'm like, there is no way. 3 children and a dog that I would never even make it there. I wouldn't make it there.
Yeah, I have some thoughts there, but I'll just spare everybody.
Um, how do you feel like homeschooling has changed you? Has it changed the way that you, think or operate or, um I mean, it sounds like you've had your mind changed about homeschool itself just from, like, you know, thoughts that you had before, um, it was an option for you, or you made it an option for you. But yeah, just like, how has it changed the way that you operate in the world?
I think I had this idea pre-kids that I would be excited to send my kids off to school. That is, like, the cultural norm, like, free childcare. We use school like childcare in this country,
Mm,
and I have the luxury of being able to not do that. Like, we bought a house we could afford on one income. My partner's paid really well. Um, we're not like we don't have some extravagant lifestyle, like, we're not, like, going on vacation, but, um, I don't know, I just everybody's like, "Once they're 5," or whatever it is now, because now it's like, you became like, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I realized when I had my first kid, like, doing it outside of the box, having a home birth already, I felt kind of outside of all the communities because I remember being in my midwife's office when I was interviewing her before I hired her and being like, "I don't really think I'm crunchy enough for a home birth. Like, I didn't earn this, but I'm gonna interview you because I would like to do this?" And so I didn't feel like I fit in with that community, and I also didn't feel like I agreed. I have, like, a very mainstream wonderful friend group that was, like, from holdovers from college, and there was one other woman having a kid at the same time, and, um, they have a big house. They She went right back to work at 3 months, and I just that felt so I was like, "What is wrong with me?" Like, I just couldn't even imagine,
Mm,
and that feeling never really like, yes, I need breaks. I'm not like, "I could never let my children leave." Like, no. I go to song circle every week, and it is my me time. I go without the kids, and that is sacred time. Um, but I I realize, like, if your kids are in public school, 9 to 3, you're getting kind of the worst part of the day with them. When they're
mm,
cranky, they are exhausted because they've been inside all day. The inside part was really a killer for me. Like, I couldn't believe how little time kids spend outside anymore, that we played outside all the mind you, I'm from LA, so it's not like I'm from Minnesota or something, but, like, we don't have winter there. But we're always outside. Like,
yeah.
I can't even imagine. Like, my parents were both working, so we had a lot of free reign to kinda run around the neighborhood, but we could. And, I don't know. I I just couldn't imagine having my kids for that small of an amount of time. And then it's like dinner, which kinda needs to be started by, like, 4:30 if you're gonna have it at a reasonable hour, it feels like, and you're making it all yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, it just felt like so little time with my kids. And, um, for me, kind of really this year being, like, really just like, "Oh my gosh, I need to slow everything down."
Yeah.
Um, that living that has been like, we've been living the, like, nature piece for a while, and I'm feeling like, yes, if we need to, like, our people are never going to have reverence for the earth and feel like they belong on the earth and want to treat the earth appropriately if they don't feel any sense of belonging or community, or, like, I don't know, if they feel separate from it. And so
Mhm.
many methodologies teach us, like, humans aren't animals, they're above animals.
Yeah.
Um, I have a puppy, so I just wanna, like, preface this, like, I get cold very easily, I love my puppy, but I am gonna say something right now, like, we encase ourselves in plastic to go outside, which we do very little. Um, we are more and more removed. We're on screens a lot. I'm on my computer, my phone way too much. Even with this philosophy, like, we are so far removed. We've forgotten how to hear things. We've forgotten
Mm,
how to feel a sense of belonging on the earth. And so, reculturing it is too heavy of a task to do yourself, but, like, the piece that I can do is the schooling part, and that nature connection, that slowing down and being more in rhythm with just nature is slow, right? What's that famous quote? It's like, "Nature does not hurry, and yet everything is
everything is
accomplished.
accomplished. Yeah, yeah.
Why are we in such a hurry?" So
Yeah.
that piece, that's the thing, and I feel like I have been learning that lesson, but it landed differently this year. Probably because I was making 3 Halloween costumes by hand, and I just was like, it actually is too much. I've found my limit. I need to walk it back."
Yeah. You kind of answered a couple questions that were coming up, so,
Great, because I'm
I'll
sure we're over time.
no, 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 I think it's beautiful, it's also good. Yeah, I mean, the next one was just about, yeah, what did you have to unlearn in order to homeschool the way that you want? And it sounds like pacing and slowing down. Do you feel like that came from, like, the mental breakdown in COVID land, or and then it was just kind of like this year of homeschooling, like, deepened it? Or do you feel like you were, like, hearing whispers of that before? Like, where does your connection to nature stem from, I guess? Is it your childhood?
Probably my childhood. I remember being in college and meeting guys and thinking, gosh, like all the kindest, coolest people that I would want to spend time with had a childhood where like they weren't playing video games in their basement, which is a lot of kids nowadays, right? And this is at like a predominantly white college, affordable state school, but still like a prestigious state school or whatever. Like that a lot of the kids there had a lot of privilege and um weren't outside a ton. And so I started noticing this pattern like, oh, when you were a kid, you were playing in the forest. Oh, I mean, I didn't have a forest, but we had like an old, it was land that was owned by the military that hadn't been used since World War II and was being held by them in case they wanted to expand the military base above it.
Wow.
But it was a nature area because they didn't do anything with it. So everybody would walk their dogs there. It was
Mm.
many acres. It was amazing. Like in LA, like that is unheard of.
Yep.
And also by the ocean, right? Which is a
Yeah.
big deal. So here, I don't know. I guess I've had that piece. That is like a piece of me, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it didn't really I don't know. Once I was in Colorado, Colorado is already, I feel like, a state where people really prioritize work life balance. Even so, though, there's still this expectation that like you're at work from 9 to 5 if you have a typical 9 to 5 job. You're like really you're asking permission to take time off. It's the norm but it feels like, why do we live here? Why are we all like in January making these frantic camping reservations for a weekend in July when we don't even know? Will we be feeling well? Will there be a fire that will make the air quality really smoky? We have no idea. But everybody is so like, if you don't do that, then it's first come, first serve. And good luck if you can't go up on a Thursday. And I was like, well, what if you could go up on a Thursday? Um, and being a freelancer, I had the flexibility, like, for a long time, I also did freelance writing, and I was writing for this company in Australia, this, like, ad agency in Australia, and because they have kind of the opposite schedule, it was great because I had a lot of the day like, I didn't need to there was no expectation to respond at a certain time. I just
Mm.
had my deliverables, and I'd deliver them whatever I was writing. I'd have, like, an evening or a morning call to check in about things, and not even every day, and then I could, like, go about my day.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I don't know, like yeah, but then this year, I already had the ideals of, like, we're gonna slow everything down, which feels like a radical act these days. We're gonna have the nature connection piece. I, like, picked my curriculums all carefully. And then I realized I was saying yes to everything that the cohort was doing because everything sounded so cool. And I was driving more than I've ever driven in my life, truly. I
Yeah.
didn't even have a car in college. I had a bike. And it is truly the most time I've ever spent in a car was this fall. And I was like, this is insane. Part of it is because the cohort is spread out.
Yeah.
Um, but everybody's so wonderful. It's like, well, I don't want to drop the cohort and it's rad and I need that community piece, but how do I diminish the driving? And I was like, oh, I could say no. Like, I don't
Yeah.
have to go. Everything is optional. What a concept. So I started going to less things and nobody died.
Yep.
And I started doing less homeschool stuff and I was happier and it was easier to be patient with my kids. and I realized, like, I had overscheduled myself. I had done it to myself,
Yeah.
and, there was nobody to blame but myself, but because of that, I could change things. So, like, yes, it's been there, and I relearned it again this year, like, and I have a feeling I'm gonna be relearning it
Yeah.
again and again and
The spiral.
again.
Just keep going again and again. Um, you mentioned the song circle night as like sacred time. Do you have other practices that ground you when it does feel hard other than like saying no, saying no, scheduling less, going to song circle?
Song circles during the day. It That's, like, my main thing. In
Yeah.
a perfect world, I would be doing yoga, and I would be, like, riding a horse and walking my
And you'd
dog.
overschedule your self-care, which like I
I
wonder if
know.
that
This
is
is
a thing,
not no.
honestly.
Which version of my life do I want to live? No, it's mostly just song circle or,
Yeah,
like, a good dog walk, and I'm good. Like, lately, I've been able to get the big kids on their bikes, and the baby, she won't stay in the carrier the whole walk, but she's sometimes more tolerant to the stroller, or if I time it for a nap-ish time, like, when she would tend to go down, then she'll nap in the stroller, and I can do, like, a 2-hour dog walk. It'll probably take 3 hours, but, like, that is a big amount of time outside. It feels really good for me. The kids are happy. I'm happy. The dog is happy. I love my dog. Um, it is I love that.
yeah,
I guess before the baby, we biked everywhere when we were in Longmont, unless we were, like, going to the grocery store, and it would just be too much to carry the groceries home.
yeah,
And now that's something I didn't really think about when I wanted a third.
yeah,
Um, yeah, like, we have an e-cargo bike, and I can put the baby on it, but, like, my middle kid doesn't really have a stamina or, like, I wouldn't really trust her on, like, a near busy streets yet. Like, my oldest is a different personality and, like, very, like, cautious.
yeah,
She is just kinda like, "Woo, we're doing it," you know?
yeah,
I am like, it's scary. Like, we could bike to the library, but we are not gonna go. I used to, like, bike all over the place. Now that piece is kind of I used to do, like, bike rides along the river to the airport. There's, like, a little airport in town, and we would watch the planes take off, and, like, if I was having a rough day, we'd go do that in the late afternoon. Again, not in winter because it's dark in late afternoon, it's fine. But then the whole way there, I can just zone out. I'm along the river. The kids are happy on the back of the e-bike, and they're happy to watch the planes take off, and I can just, like, zen out.
yeah,
Um, there's no biking right now. Like, the kids
yeah,
are on bikes, but, um, you know, I think probably in the spring it'll come back, but, uh, weathering that, like, 4 to 5.5, like, ah, it's
yeah,
scary. She has, like, big kid abilities, but not, like, you could get stranded by a good tantrum for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, last question. And then if there's anything else you want to add, you're more than welcome to. Um, if you could speak to someone who is like maybe on the fence about homeschooling, or maybe even like the version of yourself that was on the fence, before you committed, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are have youngers who are maybe 4-ish, and they're homeschool curious, as I like to call that crowd,
Yeah,
and I do not ever want to convince somebody that homeschooling is the best way. Like, I think like, my partner and I agreed to take it year by year. Um, I'm feeling really good right now. Maybe I won't be feeling that way at the end of the year or next year.
yeah,
Um, but I guess I would say it's totally doable if you can find some community. That is the best thing you could do. Like, beyond finding a cool curriculum, there are so many good curriculums. It'll be fine. Like, just there are options out there. They're all gonna be probably fine. But if you don't have it makes a big difference when you can ask for help from somebody, even maybe even if it was just a really active Facebook group. Like, say somebody use Blossom and Root, and I think that group is really active because I was talking to another mom who is, like, in it all the time. That might be enough if you have, like, community through another source, like, say you have a good friend group or, a really popular park that you can walk to, so you get that kind of community piece.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say it's surprisingly doable. It almost feels like I'm getting away with some it's like when you leave the library and you've got, like, 20 books and you're like, "This is okay. This is
Yeah.
allowed. This is totally fine. Okay." And they're all beautifully illustrated, you know? They're just gonna let me walk out of here. It's kind of like that feeling, if that lands for anybody. It's like, wow, I can just teach my kids and it's really lovely. That doesn't mean there aren't bad days, but we had a really warm day and I got to do this amazing short hike with my kids on like a random weekday and it was glorious. It felt amazing and magical and just such a gift to get to spend that time with them. And the trail was like, there were still people on it because it's Boulder, Colorado, but it wasn't packed at all.
Yeah.
Um, just enough that, like, if I needed help, I could have begged somebody for help, but everything was
Mhm.
fine. And I just had this moment that was a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Wow, this feels good. This feels good." And this woman came up and chatted to me over the summer. It was like in maybe August. And I was at the park with my kids, this really beautiful park, and, she was visiting from, I think, Illinois, she said, and somewhere in the Midwest, and, she was like, "Do you homeschool?" I don't know what vibe I was putting off that day. I was like, "I do." And she's like, "Your kids were just so curious about this ant colony," and I was like, "Wow, the bar is low, you guys." But um, she homeschools too, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, do you live here? Like, let's chat." And she's like, "I don't. I live in Illinois." I was like, "Of course you do." But she said that I was like chatting with her because I needed to talk to somebody about it all, and she said that somebody told her, actually 2 women with grown kids told her, "If you are like on top of your curriculum, like you are up to the day, like not behind at all, your to-do list is crossed off and you're like, yeah, let's do something earlier. We can add something else in. They said, you are missing the point and you need to drop everything and go outside for the day.
Mm.
Not as like, not even from the outdoor angle, just from the like, you you should be taking advantage of the luxury that you have to live your life,
Mm.
um, and actually, like, enjoy some moments with your kids versus like, the goal is not to become some taskmaster teacher,
Yeah.
and, um, I don't know, that I think I answered that.
Yes, you totally did. Yeah, it's like a permission slip. I mean, that
Hmm.
it's like nice to be reminded of those sometimes, when it's like you know that intrinsically because that's why we're all doing this, right? But I do think sometimes because of conditioning and the world, like you just forget. And then I think, yeah, the days where you remember like why you're doing it in the first place, it's like those are the best days. Yeah.
And it's hard to keep the politics out of it with, like, the grandparents, I feel like. It's become such a, like, polarizing it's, like, become associated with a certain, like, mode of thinking and belief systems. Like, I thought all homeschoolers pretty much were religious, for example, and that's just not true.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. First of all, there's a lot more in common. I also learned, like, I actually am pretty aligned with a lot of the religious homeschoolers that I would have been, like, avoiding if I had had that be, like, a core tenet of my community.
Yeah.
Uh, so many of them are really inspiring. I found some really good blogs. Um, yeah, so, like, the closed-mindedness is probably something that should be on that list too, right? Like, don't be so
Yeah.
closed-minded.
Yeah.
Conversely, too, like, I meet a lot of people who have, like, maybe a 3-year-old, and they're on their 2nd kid, and they're like, "Wow, you're doing it all. You got the 3 kids. You got the dog," you know? And, that doesn't mean I'm not exhausted sometimes, and also, I don't have it all figured out, right? But, like, they're like, "I definitely wanna homeschool." And I am always like, "Ju" oh, the baby. I'm like, "Hey, you never know, like, don't judge the people who are sending their kids to public school. That could be you. You know, if I had another mental health breakdown, I would not hesitate to put my kids in public school until I could ride that out." Um, I don't think that the teachers are bad. I don't think that the goal I think that, like, sure, if you get into the, like, how our education system was born and all of that, it's dark. But and the efficiency, like, trying to cram all these kids with, like, one teacher. I think there were 33 kids in my kindergarten class, like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But and I'm like, "And I'm normal." I'm like, "Am I normal?" But, um, I think that the heart is there in a lot of the teachers, they're just really under-resourced.
Yeah.
My kids.
I can't hear anything on your
Oh,
side.
good,
Just
okay.
yeah.
I can. Um, anyway, I am losing my train of thought because they're so
I
loud, but
think where you're going is, like, it's not like public school is bad and homeschool is the best thing, like, I do feel
right,
like that there's a
right.
lot of that messaging, and yeah, I actually just read a piece recently that was, like, very anti-private school. They didn't even mention homeschool as, like, an option, and
Oh,
just, like,
wow.
super, super pro public school for the, uh I think, like, diversity and democracy and sort of these, like, standards, right? And so then you get into, like, the politics of things and the assumptions of, like, oh, you couldn't possibly have, like, democracy in action in a homeschool setting, or, oh, you couldn't possibly have, like, homeschool parents who believe that teachers are really amazing and should be resourced more, like, I do think that that can be really tricky, and I feel like, thankfully, I think I mostly got over this pretty quickly, but when you're first starting out, I feel like you're so worried about the misconceptions of what
Mhm.
people are going to think, who they're going to
Yes.
think that you are.
I'm never like, "I'm homeschooling."
Yeah, like, you're
I'm like
so it is. You're like, "Oh, if I say this," like, I remember initially, I was like, "I don't even know how to describe what we're doing because we're not at home all the time, and I don't feel like we're certainly not homeschooling in, like, the traditional sense of what I thought homeschooling was, but I also am not totally unschooling, and I also am not following this curriculum, like, you feel like you have to, like, fit into a box once
uh,
again, even though you're doing the thing that is saying, like, "Hey, you actually don't have to." All the
there's so
thing that
much
makes you feel like you still need to, and so we do. We, like, jump through all these hoops to, like, what curriculum am I using, and who am I, and how am I gonna explain this to people, and it's so nice to just, like, be at a point where you let that go.
yeah, totally. I mean, not that I'm not occasionally embarrassed when somebody's like, "Wow, so you're homeschooling."
Yeah.
Or I don't know, if I had, like, a $5 bill for every time somebody was like, "You have your hands full," I'd be doing okay,
Yeah.
but but, um, I don't know, I think there's so much divisiveness right
Yeah.
now, and I don't just mean, like, politically, obviously politically, but just even amongst homeschoolers themselves, if you just take that piece, there's, like, "Oh, well, I'm doing it because" like, even, like, unschoolers, I was expecting them to be, like, the least judgmental, I guess, and, I feel like they are too. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
"This is the way," but everybody that I've met in real life has been a mix of things
Yeah.
and very tolerant, and it could just be, like, luck of the draw, location, I don't know, but I wonder if everybody is, like, so niched down on the internet where, like, we're seeking advice for whatever random homeschool, a book that references symmetry for a tie-in to mathematics in kindergarten, whatever
Yeah.
random rabbit trail you find yourself down. Um, it's so easy to find a contrary perspective, like, "Ugh, if you're using a curriculum, then you are part of the system."
Yeah.
Um, the teachers don't even want the kids to go outside, like, I have a hard time believing that. I don't think anybody is really happy about the fact that kids spend so little time outside. It's
Yeah.
just kind of happened. And so, I think there are more good people than bad, and judging people, whatever their decisions are, is probably the worst. Like, you just can't know why you're gonna make a decision later or what your world is gonna be like in another year even, and kids every year is so different.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know, that it's not really like from somebody who doesn't unschool or sorry, doesn't homeschool. It's more like general than that, like anybody
Yeah.
homeschool curious, like, don't be judgy about the other options. The other options are good too. I don't think we are very privileged in that we have a lot of good options in this area,
Yeah.
and, I think they would be fine in other options. That I just felt like taking advantage of my ability to choose the option I felt the best about, and right now
Yeah.
it's homeschooling.
Yeah. Well said. That's all I got.
Great. Well,
Thank you.
let's see, am I an hour over? Like, "Oh, man."
No, it's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your perspective.
Yeah, thank you. Your time is a gift, and I appreciate it. You also have 3 kids.
They're
Anyway.
all asleep, so
Mine are not, so I'm gonna go deal with that.
wait and
Anyway,
get on bedtime.
I know, I was like, "What is happening out there?" It's fine, but it's not fine.
Alrighty. Well, have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.